Anthony Joshua there speaking to me a couple of weeks ago. That was for DAZN. That interview is now available on the DAZN platform. It's also available on YouTube as well, so you can watch the interview in full. He does go into, speaking about Alexander Usyk, we speak about potential opponents as well, Hrgovic, Dillian Whyte, Otto Wallin.
He's favouring Dillian Whyte, isn't he?
You can see it in that interview as well, just the reaction from his team, which were just looking at me from one side. As soon as I mentioned Dillian Whyte, I kind of looked at them and I could almost see, I thought a hint as to what they're going to do next. And I will say this, I'm pretty upset that AJ's not fighting. I remember I did say in that interview, and I've kind of contradicted myself since, that it was good to have a rest, but the fact he's not fighting December 3rd or December 17th, I think it's disappointing, because that means if he is favouring Dillian Whyte's got a fight coming up against Jermaine Franklin in a couple of weeks. That means we're not going to see him in the ring until April.
Yeah,
it's not good enough.
It'll be April. No, it might not be good enough. But what I did pick up from your interview with him was there's definitely a respect for Tyson Fury, definitely a respect, and for Fury's culture in the way that Anthony put that stuff, Addy, but also clearly in him is an appetite to fight Tyson Fury. And I saw it in that interview.
Yeah.
He wants to fight Tyson Fury, and I love it. And they will meet, even though Tyson's saying at the moment they won't.
Yeah,
they will. They'll meet.
Do you really think they will, Gareth?
Yeah, in the next 2 years they'll meet. They'll meet in the next 2 years. Yeah, I think so. Big fight, big fight.
Oh, massive! I mean, you know more than anyone.
But I want Joshua to win 2 fights first. I want him to, beat. I don't want him to beat Dillian Whyte. Whoever wins. I'm not saying I want Anthony to beat Dillian Whyte, but. I hope he beats Dillian Whyte and then wins again, and it could be a mandatory then for he could get close to being mandatory for one of the belts anyway. So those 2 fight without belts, it's still mega. It's mega. It's a generational fight. You said it. Yeah. They're in their prime still. Both of them are in their prime. Even in a couple of years, they're both still very close to being in their prime. So. It happens. I'm sorry. It happens.
You saw in an interview, and I mean, Gareth sent me a couple of messages as well about the interview, which is nice. I like a bit of feedback from Mr. Davies, because I always learn from the best. But you saw in that interview where he mentioned his mental state, and that sort of friends were saying maybe take a break because of where he is mentally. Again, we saw what happened at the end of the.
That's conventional wisdom in boxing. Conventional wisdom in boxing, and the right thing to do. So a good rest now is good because he's settled again. He's not emotional about things. He's not overtraining. He's not pushing himself. He's pushing himself for a deeper, stronger reason. And he's having to think about it. And that's really good. I thought it came across very well with you. I mean, you and him get on. You have a lot of cultural identity that you share as well. And I know it's difficult for you to criticize him sometimes because of the way we are. Because I mean, I do. I mean, I've spent a lot of time critiquing Anthony, but I've spent a lot of time saying how brilliant he is, and he is.
Yeah.
And I think I'd love to see him get back.
No.
And I really want to see him challenge Tyson Fury.
Of course. I mean, we know what AJ. You know more than others what AJ's done for British boxing, and it's just it would be good to see him versus Tyson Fury, same generation, same era. It has to happen. Do you think? And one thing that I didn't ask him, which I'm gutted. When you do these interviews, you almost leave and think I should have asked that. Robert Garcia. We haven't heard much about whether or not that's continuing. Do you think it is continuing? Do you think it's done?
Well, because you didn't ask him, Addy, we don't know. Now, if you'd done your job properly and asked him, we'd all bloody well know now, live on air, wouldn't we? No, I think, look, he was definitely an improved fighter under Robert Garcia in Saudi. We saw it. We definitely saw it. I don't care what anyone says about the way we talk about him. He definitely was in that fight in the 9th and 10th rounds, and it's a shame he didn't have it to pin Usyk down and really stop him, which is what he had to do, I think, or at least outbox him in the last 3 rounds. He's improved. Robert Garcia is good for him. Robert Garcia is good for anyone. He's a great person. I think he wants different conditions. I'm sure they'll get into it once he knows who he's fighting. And we've got to wait till, I think, was it November the 17th, till Dillian's fought? Yeah. Is it something like that? 26th. We'll know then, because he'll be getting into camp then, I think, because, he might face, as Eddie Hearn said, if Jermaine, his name escapes me right now.
Jermaine Franklin.
Sorry, yes, Jermaine Franklin, quite right, yes. Silly to forget that. Jermaine Franklin wins, that could be the next Anthony Joshua opponent.
Indeed, it'll be good if AJ's ringside for that one as well. All right, let's talk about the now infamous interview between Tyson Fury and True Geordie. Let's just no wasting time here. Let's just get straight into it. What did you make of it? Was Tyson Fury wrong? Did True Geordie push buttons that he maybe shouldn't have pushed? What's your initial thoughts after watching it? I'm sure you have watched it.
Yeah, he asked all the questions that all the casual boxing fans, or all the hardcore boxing fans want to ask, where they never have an ongoing knowledge of what's going on, you know, right across the panoply of the sport. And they're very much right in their own rights to ask that question.
Of course.
You know, True Geordie, Brian Davies, as he is his name. You know, he's a football. I think he's emerged through football, but has a speak in boxing now, and he says a voice there. I mean, I watched one of his interviews the other day with Jordan Peterson. Well, it wasn't an interview; it was a monologue from Peterson for an hour and a half, which was interesting. But I think Tyson Fury just lost patience with him because he was kind of teasing him a little bit and poking him and just asking the questions that we ask, and then we don't ask 10 times ourselves because we kind of know the answers. Like, yes, Chisora is not the perfect opponent, but you know, in reality, it works. And you and I have spoken to about this on our show. It's just a pairing that works right now. You know, I don't want to. I'm not interested in fighting Martin Bakole and.
No, that was a name, but you know what it is, Gareth. I did a sort of video on my own YouTube channel, and I was talking about the interview, and I did say and I mentioned your name on it actually in glowing terms. I didn't actually have a go at you. I actually mentioned you in positive terms. I said, like, a lot of YouTubers, if they do push the buttons with a lot of these fighters, they kind of can get a negative response, and it's almost like a lot of the top boxers know that YouTubers are desperate for the monetization and the money, so the YouTubers are almost treading softly around fighters. I said, of all the people I've seen interview fighters, the only ones that are not afraid to push buttons, I said, are you and Steve Bunce. I actually mentioned you. I said they have a way of asking the questions where, you know, the fighters might be uncomfortable, but they've got the respect of the fighters, so the fighters will always answer the questions. And I feel like the YouTubers don't. And I feel like True Geordie sort of did it two ways. He was asking questions that YouTubers won't, but it was also asking it in a way in which maybe was a bit condescending and a bit disrespectful to Tyson Fury. But I still feel like boxers don't like uncomfortable questions. And that sometimes that is how they react to them. And again, you have been able to kind of do it, maybe through experience and the way in which you word the questions, but not many can get away with it. And I think that's where I didn't like Tyson Fury's response. You can ask questions, but he seemed to get very irate quickly with the questions. And I don't know, maybe you need to sort of give people journalism lessons, but you have a way of asking those questions and getting a response.
Well, I think it's about trust, isn't it? I mean, if you're in the industry and you're around fighters a lot, they kind of know you.
Yeah. You
know, they might know at one side you're a bit of a lunatic, you know, or this, that, and the other about you know, but they know that I think it's just having history. And look, sometimes when you are in an industry, you can overlook the story. You can overlook the top line as well. So I would say it the other way around in their favor as well. But I think when you're working with people a lot, I don't want to make this sound wrong, but sometimes, certainly with the Conor Benn case at the moment, and this case with 26 hours lost that really did in a vacuum saw boxing get ravaged and pilloried morally and ethically, in my view. And I think it has, and it's still going to be there for a while. You know, sometimes when you're in that situation, you're corresponding with a lot of people and they're all giving you answers, but you're not publishing them because they're not the full picture. And, you know, it's not a tabloid headline, or it's not what I'm trying to do. But I think I think he did fine in the interview, but I just think he got it in a bit of a weird order. I know that sounds strange, but you're kind of alluding to this right now. There's a time when you pick your moment, when you can get true emotion out of a fight, or you can go truthful, or you leave a gap. Look, boxing is a sport of opinions and always will be. You know, I've been listening to some tapes, old stuff from way back when, and loads of great fighters had fights that the public didn't like, or the newspapers were against, or, you know, the world champions up against the bum of the month. These are just people's views, and you know, there's democracy about publishing views now. You don't have to listen to people's views, but everybody's got a view. It's the resentful ones. I don't think he was being resentful towards him. I think he was digging him, and we've all been there. He just had enough. That's enough. And
not good though with the end words though, was it? Like he could have shut that interview down without the last 30 seconds.
No, I'd rather have seen them sitting next to each other with him doing that and seeing what the guy was how the guy was gonna react.
I don't think he would have said anything back.